Bears GM Ryan Poles is making moves, and unfortunately, Robert Quinn has been traded to the Philadelphia Eagles for a fourth-round pick. And I like the move, and all my favorite teams are helping Philadelphia squads win championships. But here's the thing. The Bears are playing for the future, and while I would still love to win the games this season, and I know that puts me in the vast minority of Bears fans where I still love to win football games. I know I'm a little bit of a weirdo, but we have to play the long haul, the long game, so to speak. And that's what Ryan Poles is doing here, building a future squad, building on future success. And listen, I still believe, and I know that I'm a lunatic, the NFC sucks. And the Bears can make the playoffs, but at the same time, you have to set yourselves up nicely for the future and look forward to everything. And I'll tell you something right now. I'm looking forward to this show. So, Sammy, why don't we go ahead and get started?
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy and Air Pura. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the Sick Podcast, Chicago with Adam Rank. Thanks to all of us who have joined us on AM 1530 WCKG, the Chicago home of the Sick Podcast. Every Friday, we're on the air from 2 to 3 Central. You can catch us there on AM 1530, followed immediately by Olin Kreutz and Jason McKee, the No Name Pod. Thanks to everybody who is here today. We got a great show lined up for you. Our friend Greg Wilson will be joining us, actor, comedian. You've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He's one of my good friends. He's going to be joining us in a matter of moments. Andy McNamara is back for a trip to Fantasy Isle. And of course, Ricky Gold is going to be here from Juice Reels. So we have got an action-packed show lined up for you. Great game this week against the Dallas Cowboys. But before that, we wanted to mention once again, we're going to miss Bobby Quinn. He was an exceptional leader. You saw how emotional Roquan Smith got after hearing the news while he was on the podium at Hallis Hall talking. He broke down, couldn't finish. And even Ryan Poles himself understands all of that. And I wanted to read this quote to you. And he says, "It sucks to mess with the locker room culture, to be completely honest with you. But my job, his job, is to do what's best for the organization, not only now, but in the future. I felt like it was the best move for us to make." And listen, before you scoff at getting just a fourth-round pick, remember Braxton Jones, Dom Robinson, both these guys were fifth-round picks this year. So I have a lot of confidence in Ryan Poles that he's going to use that pick to the best of our abilities. Now, some other news. Byron Pringle was designated to return this week. Hopefully we can see him out on the field with him and N'Keal Harry. And listen, it's not Michael Irvin and Alvin Harper, but it's still a pretty good duo out there. So I think that's huge for the Bears to get both those guys eventually back. Lucas Patrick is expected to go on IR if he hasn't already. And listen, Sam Mustipher just won't go away. That asteroid from Armageddon or Deep Impact could hit the earth. Sam Mustipher would be walking around still starting on the offensive line for the Chicago Bears. But you know what? We got a lot to get through today. So why don't we line up right now with Rank's rivals? And joining us here today is a good friend of mine. When you see him, you'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen him on Bones. I've seen him on Superstore. I tripped out the first time I saw him on Superstore. Like, oh, I didn't even know he was going to do it, but we've also seen him on Modern Family. He's a touring comic as well. Him and I actually did a tour a couple of years ago, Fantasy Meets Reality. Unfortunately, that got derailed by COVID over the last couple of years, but perhaps we can bring that up once again. But without further ado, let's bring out hardcore Cowboys fan and friend of mine, Greg Wilson. What's up, buddy?
Hey, brother. How are you, man? Good to be on the show. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. When I saw the Dallas Cowboys on the schedule, I said, there's nobody else I want here to chop it up with me. How are you living as a Cowboys fan? Because, you know, when Dak Prescott got injured, it seemed like it could have been pretty rough, but Cooper Rush did a really nice job of guiding you through those waters.
Absolutely shocking how well he did. And that was the thing going into the Philadelphia game. You knew this was the end of the run. You knew it'd been too good. There was no way, like it had already exceeded expectations so far that for him to actually beat the Eagles in Philly, it truly would have been fantasy land. Like it would have been fantasy meeting reality. Like there was, and I think we all kind of knew it. And then as it played out, we were like, yeah, well, good run, right? Good run. And you know what's funny? Good. And you know how awful Philly fans are. They surprisingly were not as celebratory as you would have expected for a team that just beat the Cowboys. Really? Don't get me wrong, they were celebrating, but not online. I didn't receive nearly as much like that you get, because even they knew that they didn't beat the Dallas Cowboys. They beat the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. So they knew that it was a victory, but they knew the real test would be later this year when we face them again, which will be the game in Dallas.
Absolutely. And it's funny too, Philadelphia is a huge wrestling town. It's like a tag team match. You don't pin the superstar, you pin the jobber who was teamed with the superstar with Dak Prescott. I got to say this about Cooper Rush too. I think the most impressive thing was by playing so well, they were able to sit there and allow Dak Prescott to hang out, relax, kind of, heal his thumb. Because remember when that injury first happened, Jerry Jones is like, he might be back next week. They never put him on IR. But with Cooper Rush playing so well, they're like, oh, yeah, take your time until you lose. You figured the Philadelphia Eagles game was going to be it. As a fan, were you walking into that being like, yeah, we're probably not going to win this one?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? You hate it when Jerry's actually right. You do, because he's Mr. Burns. You love to hate him, and he does so many things that are so infuriating, which I'm surprised you're not more furious. I mean, you guys finally get momentum going, and they trade away Robert Quinn, which is one of those players that, regardless of what it says on the stat sheet, his presence is a game changer. And so for the fourth round, that's one of those, I don't get it. Like the Jaguars giving up Robinson for a sixth rounder. Like, he's your insurance policy. You have a great running back who knows your offense, and let's not pretend like Breece Hall just went down. Etienne was out last year. Like, some of these moves are confounding. But when Jerry Jones was like, I think we got a good one. I think we may have a controversy for quarterback there. And we were like, oh my God, Jerry, you're just so cheap. You're such a cheap bastard. And then he starts winning games, and we're like, I loathe to admit you were right, Jerry. But he clearly had seen things that we hadn't, which was a consistent quarterback who knows how to not lose games. And if there's a real silver lining, it's it reined Kellen Moore back in and got him back to running the ball first. And that change, when he stuck with it last week with Dak back in there, instead of trying to throw it all over the yard, which is what he usually does with Dak, I was like, yes. It brought him back to the formula that was working when they first started getting on this run with Dak and Zeke.
Yeah, it was a really amazing set of circumstances with those games with Cooper Rush as a quarterback. But a couple of things I want to hit on. Number one, you underestimate JaMycal Hasty. Oh, maybe JaMycal Hasty's so good that the Jags just had to trade James Robinson. By the way, as somebody who had James Robinson in a couple of leagues, I'm glad that he's on the Jets now, so he gets an opportunity. We'll be talking fantasy aisle later. We got to bring you back some week. I'm already ahead of myself. We got to bring you to the fantasy aisle at some point. But also, I don't mind getting a fourth round pick for Robert Quinn. While I think the Bears can make the playoffs, I think that, Philadelphia, Dallas are clearly much better and much better suited to make a run into the NFC Championship game than the Bears. So, okay, we'll play for the future and do it like that. But you talked about Kellen Moore and running the ball. Ezekiel Elliott, according to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, looks like he might not play this week. Do you think that actually bodes, I don't know, I don't want to say better for the Dallas Cowboys because I don't want to dismiss Zeke, but Tony Pollard is an absolute beast.
I agree with that. And as someone who has Pollard, I'm very excited for the bump he will be receiving this particular Sunday when I really needed it. But so it's one of those breaks that goes your way and you're like, like you with Robinson, like, yes, he's back in the number one saddle. So it's like, okay, finally something breaks my way. But I do like having, he was looking great. He was looking better. Zeke was he was starting to do the feed me thing again. Like it was starting to happen again. And it was about replacing that lineman that we picked up. That old guy that we added to our line? Jason Peters, thank you. The second we plugged him in, all of a sudden those lanes opened up down the middle. All of a sudden Zeke was productive again. And we were like, see, that way it wasn't Zeke. It was the line. It had been so beat up. We'd lost so many pieces, Lael Collins, et cetera, and so it was starting to happen again. And again, I don't know if it helps because he's not as good of a blitz blocker. That's always been the knock about Pollard. But, we may see a more electric running game overall with more Pollard. I mean, for everyone that's been talking about it, and myself included, Pollard should be the 1A, and Zeke needs to be the 1B. Well, you know what? We'll find out. We're going to find out this Sunday against, up until yesterday, a much more frightening defensive front from the Bears. You take away Robert Quinn, and I like our chances a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Bobby Quinn is a great player, and it's unfortunate for you that he's going to the Philadelphia Eagles, where he's going to make a huge impact. That's actually the worst part of it. Like, you escape him for a week, but you'll see him in a couple of months here. I really like the way that the Bears defense performed on Monday night, but I want to go back. I want to focus in a little bit more about the Dallas Cowboys. First of all, I agree with you on Zeke. I think that he gets way too much blame. I think because people overdraft him in fantasy, you're like, you know what? That's on you. He's a solid player. This is the first game he's missing in a long time. He's a solid guy, not as a person, I don't know, but he's a solid player. Let's put it that way. Solid player.
Minimal for a Dallas Cowboys RB1, minimal amount of off-field distractions.
Yeah. It's not too bad, but it's one of those things. I have a story from the NFL rookie premiere, but I won't go into that here. But the thing is, he's a good player. CeeDee Lamb, I think Cooper Rush maybe unlocked something for him. Are we going to start seeing a better version of CeeDee Lamb and hopefully Dalton Schultz moving forward?
Well, again, I think all of that was part and parcel with them focusing on the run game again. The problem they were having was trying to be pass first to set up the run, which is not Dallas's formula. It's not what they're good, especially with losing Amari Cooper. You could do it last year when you had the Amari Cooper and Lamb, and it was, you had to pick your poison, and one of them was going to burn you. They don't have that this year, especially with Gallup being out so long, and now he's coming back, and he doesn't look very good. So I think what really changed it wasn't so much Cooper Rush. It was the switch to establishing the run, getting Peters in there to help establish that run. And I think that's what opened up the pass game and will continue to open the pass game. So I think it was more about that, that little transition in the play calling and our scheming than it was more the Cooper Rush transition. I mean, Cooper Rush forced him to change the way he called plays because Kellen Moore, former quarterback, Fresno State, a team that has no defense. He threw it for, 1,000 yards every game. So that's what he wants to do. And I think he was doing that too much, but we lost Amari Cooper. And I think that transition back to the run game, I think that's what did it and will eventually save Lamb's season fantasy-wise.
And so all the people who want to crucify you in the comments, it's Boise State. We know that. Like, they're the same. Who cares? Stop it. Don't be the person in the comments like, actually, he went to Boise State. Oh, we get it. We know. Jared Zabransky, we get it. Understandable. Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, they're Fresno State. It's top of mind. These West Coast schools, and I know Idaho's not exactly the West Coast, but whatever. WAC, Mountain West, whatever it is. Here's my thing, though. I love the way the offense is playing. You talk about the Bears' run defense. It has been their Achilles heel because their secondary's played very well this season. I think the additions of Kyler Gordon, who's played well, he had an interception on Monday night. Jaquan Brisker looks like the real deal. If you have an opportunity to move the ball on the Bears, it is on the ground, and the Cowboys seemed well equipped for that. Defensively, the reason probably why the Cowboys were able to play so well during the Cooper Rush reign, and what a reign it was, you got this Cowboys defense that is unbelievable. And I went on NFL Total Access a couple of weeks ago when the Cowboys, before the Cowboys played the Rams, and I said that the best defensive player is going to be in this game, and it's going to be Micah Parsons. What has it been like watching him? Because, watching the tape, this guy is unbelievable.
And to do an Adam Rank style analogy here, it's like you go to Ross and you're picking through the stuff and, it's all not in perfect condition. The seam goes weird. And then you find one thing. And you're like, no, is it? Could this be? Why is this here? And you're like, legend. You know what? I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to take it. You take it. You go home. You put it, and it's incredible. And then you wear it out. Everyone's like, where did you get that? And you're like, I'll never tell my secrets. That is him. Michael Parsons, because he was injured coming into the draft. He fell, and they were saying he was, but then he fell because the injury was so bad. Nobody wanted to touch him. Then we get him, and everyone's like, could be the steal of the draft, which I hate that phrase because it usually means he's not. But watching him come out of the gate, prove all the doubters wrong, including the fans, myself included, which I didn't doubt him. I didn't expect this. This.
You did. Okay, hold on. You did not doubt him.
I didn't doubt him.
We had this conversation, but I think that he's exceeded
expectation by anything anybody thought he could do. You were hoping to get a good player, a solid guy who put up good numbers, fortified the defense, but a star that they talk about in the same breath as Lawrence Taylor. I never, and I'm not the one saying that. These are the national guys saying it on the broadcast. They're like, I played with Lawrence Taylor, and he reminds me, and I'm like, please don't say that. But to get this kind of value out of him, it is one of those things. It's the same thing we look for every year in fantasy. There's always that one waiver wire star that comes at like the year Jay Ajayi showed up and ran for back-to-back 200-yard games. It's like that. It's just like, oh my God, it's better than I ever could have expected. So it is so much fun to watch, and it's nice to know that no matter what happens, your defense is going to keep you in the game.
Yeah, he's been an amazing part of that defense. And, you talk about coming back from the injury. The Cowboys tried this a couple of years ago with Jalen Smith, where they rolled the dice. Great player out of Notre Dame, had a horrific injury in the bowl game. You're like, okay, this is worth taking a risk on. The Cowboys are rewarded for it here. And I love the way that this defense plays. Dan Quinn, probably one of the most slept on coaches in the NFL. And, everybody will point to the 28-3 thing. But it's like, yeah, he was that close to being a Super Bowl winning coach. And here he is. I know that you don't want to think about him potentially leaving, but how great has he been? And what is the impact? I mean, he's basically saving Mike McCarthy's job too, as well, right?
Absolutely. And the thing about him is I caution other teams that would want to poach him to make him the head coach. Yes, he was almost as the Atlanta Falcons, but I think they would have won that game if he'd been just the defensive coordinator. Because that is what he is amazing at. You put him in charge of the whole thing. That's not really his bag, man. And yeah, you're going to try and lead it. If I were him, I would say, I want to stay on this, the world's #1 most valuable sports franchise, and be this great defensive coordinator that helps win championships. He hasn't fared well as a head coach. I don't think that's his strong suit. I think he's one of the world's greatest defensive coordinators, and I think he should continue to play that role. And if he leaves to go somewhere else, I can see him leaving for more money. But if I were him, I wouldn't take another head coaching job because your wheelhouse is being that guy, and he's so good at it.
This reminds me of when I do stand-up, and people are like, as a comic, you're great as an NFL analyst. Stick to that. Don't do the comedy anymore. That's
not true. You are a funny guy, Adam. You know it.
It's so funny. Like, we have these conversations, and these are like the great things that we talk about in the green rooms of the what ifs is like, because for the older Bear fans, you look back, if Buddy Ryan had stayed the defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears instead of going on to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, where he never won a Super Bowl, what could have happened? But it never seems like, for us sitting here, like, it makes sense. Like, we can make, listen, being the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys for the rest of your life doesn't seem like a bad gig. Like, I'm into this. Do you think that there's a I know we're putting the cart before the horse, but you just touched on it. But could you see this being a thing where Dan Quinn's like, no, Jerry Jones is going to, they pay him a lot of money.
They're paying him head coach money. be the defensive, because they saw him leaving the door and they're like, no, we need you.
Go.
Again, it's one of those moments you're like, Jerry, okay, I agree with you this time. Reluctantly agree with you. Yes, they paid him. They're like, we'll give you head coach money to stay here. And he's like, great, I'll stay. And that's what I'm saying. He made that choice. He could have walked out the door last year. And I'm just hoping he makes that choice again. I hope he's comfortable. And I hope Dallas doesn't do that thing where they're like, what if we made you head coach? Because again, that's not his strong suit. He is a world-class defensive coordinator, and I just love him in that position. And he's got to say, and I can't help but think that he saw his relationship with Micah Parsons. He's like, you only get to work with players like this so many times in your career. Do I really want to leave the opportunity to have this all-time great player, and build him and make him my greatest achievement? Again, I think there's a lot of reasons to not take that job. The only real reason would be if he fancies himself a head coach once again and wants all that extra responsibility and everything that comes with the criticisms and everything else, or if he wants to stay comfortable, which Dallas is making him incredibly. And also, I know that there are a lot of great sports towns. Chicago, amazing. Philly, for as much as I hate them, an amazing sports town. There are just some great sports towns. Boston, Kansas City. There's even St. Louis, even though they don't have a football team anymore. But Dallas, nobody puts them on a pedestal the way Dallas does. The city of Dallas, the way they treat their Cowboys, the staff, they really, you cannot get treated better anywhere on planet Earth than the Dallas Cowboys, especially when you're winning. You're like, you're a god amongst men in that town. So, I hope he chooses comfort and luxury in Micah Parsons over, what will ultimately probably be another doomed trip, to the head front office. So the head coaching job.
Yeah, and you got to look at the other jobs that are available. Like, you went through that in Atlanta. Why do you want to go through that again with one of these other also ran organizations? Because there's so many. There's more of them than there are the really well-run spots. And it's funny because you are a Texas kid. You're from El Paso, so you understand it too. Like what football means in the state of Texas. I'm sure Dirk Nowitzki, very popular in Dallas and in and around, but like there's nothing comparable. Like you're still not as popular as Clint Sterner or somebody like that. Now, that's an extreme example, but like there's nothing like being a Dallas Cowboy, I'm assuming.
There is nothing like it. All your meals are free. All the women, and Dallas has the most beautiful women in the world. That's the one thing Philly ain't got. I'll tell you that. But Dallas does have the most beautiful women in the world. So, I mean, in terms of, society and culture and, that's why players love it. I mean, everybody gets treated like kings in that town when you're a Dallas Cowboy. And yes, for Texas, football is here.
Yeah.
Basketball and actually in Dallas, hockey and then baseball's way down at the bottom. So
Juan Gonzalez, nobody
are way up there.
Why can't even think of a current Texas Ranger? My mind went to Juan Gonzalez.
I couldn't tell you one either.
One of the Seager brothers plays for Texas now because he got walked with the bases loaded last year. That's the only reason why I remember that he went down there. Now you're an old enough of a person. I don't want to age you or anything like that, but you were born just slightly before 1990. So you remember that run of the Cowboys. Over the last couple of years, there's been some disappointing finishes. Does this Cowboys team seem a little bit different than some of the other ones over the past couple of years?
No, it feels primed for disappointment.
Oh, no.
I mean, like you said, we've gone through it so many times. Even last year, a great 12-5. Like a great season, a great team. Like there is a part of you that the better it gets, the more you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for the big disappointment. You're expecting, and and that's the one thing people knock on us all the time for is you can't win in the playoffs. Oh, you won one, our playoff record is horrible. And nobody wants to be the regular season champion. Right. You want to be the Super Bowl. You want to catch heat at the end of, and take off through the playoffs and have that run. And that's what it's about. And Dallas is a team that tends to put together a really good season, and then the worst thing that could ever happen to us is a bye week.
Yeah.
Don't give Dallas a bye week. We are much better as a wild card team. You give us a bye week and they go out and party. And again, that's the downside. Yeah, that's the downside of being a Dallas Cowboy player, of being treated like kings, is that you're like, great, week off, and they really party you up, and then you come back, you're completely unfocused, your energy's all out of sorts, and they go out and lose. The lifestyle in Dallas is that way, that I really think that's always been a contributing factor. Every time we have a bye week, I'm like, no, because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah, they get a little too out of control. What was it? Tony Romo went to Cabo, not Cancun, but Cabo.
Whatever. It was still.
Sorry, I was thinking of one of your senators. But here's my thing, though.
Cruise? What a cruise! He went on a cruise.
I tried to sneak that one through. I will tell you this, though. The one thing about the Dallas Cowboys of the 1990s, and everybody talks about Aikman, the triplets, Aikman, Irvin, Emmitt Smith. That defense was exceptional. When they traded for Charles Haley, that's what turned their franchise around.
And Deion Sanders.
And Deion Sanders. Well, Deion Sanders came in 1995. That was a response to the 49ers winning them.
Right, exactly. They snatched him, and they were like, now we're back. And it worked.
Now you're back. It did work. And it worked for a season, and then they went out the following year, and then they had a bunch of injuries when they lost to Carolina. And see, what's funny is I was upset at the Cowboys in 96 because it's like, now you're going to let Green Bay waltz to the Super Bowl. I was hoping they were going to lose, but you're like, nope, Green Bay's traipsing in because they get to play the Carolina Panthers. And also, you had beaten the Bears in 1991. So that was a thing too. By the way, they had a backup quarterback play in 1991. Steve Berline came in, played for a stretch. There's Troy Aikman. And then they came back. They lost to the Lions. You beat us and then lost to the Lions. Like, what is happening with my life that this is going on? But I really think that this Cowboys team is a little bit different. I do think that the defense is kind of leveling everything out. Micah Parsons out there being an absolute stud. But you know what? I got to ask you, and I know the people, the ranks rivals are 4-3 against me so far this season, surprisingly, of who they're picking. How do you see this game playing out? And go ahead and give us a winner.
I mean, it's going to be the Cowboys, just because they are playing. The Bears are. That's why the move with Quinn was so confounding, because the Bears were finally trending in the right direction after a very slow start of 4 games, 4 games. They started lighting it up. They started heating up. They were letting Fields run around. They were scoring points. They beat the Patriots on Monday night. Then they give away a key piece. I feel like that's, I mean, they don't want to say it. You can't write it down. You can't put it in a graph, but that's the kind of thing that hurts momentum, that hurts your spirit, that kind of puts just a little spark of doubt in what was a team that was charging forward, like, here we go. And then it's like, what? It's a kind of thing. Dallas, for us, not having Zeke, we're kind of like, well, we got Pollard, fire him up. We got to do what we got to do. But, our defense is the difference maker for us this season. It is, when you say it's a little bit different, is because of the defense. Jimmy Johnson noted that. I think it was it 2016 or 17 when we went, I want to say it was 13-3. And everyone was like picking Dallas to go to the Super Bowl. And Jimmy Johnson goes, well, the difference between them and my teams was we had the number 1 defense.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that was what cost us when we got to the playoffs. We couldn't slow the other guys down. And so I think you're right. This is the difference maker. I think it'll be the difference this season. And it's definitely the difference this Sunday. For me, and everybody else, most people are going to pick the Cowboys in this one. And and rightfully so. But again, Chicago cannot be overlooked. And they are absolutely, Fields is finding it. He is absolutely, sort of the way you found your wife's readers and were like, you know what? I'm out of time. I'm wearing them for this podcast.
How dare you? My daughter picked these out from the Dollar Tree. This is what happens when you have a 7-year-old and you're like, you're in charge. So she picked out every piece of colorful readers and put them out there.
And you're such a good dad. You're like, you know what, babe? Yeah, no, I'm wearing them. Yeah, no, look, honey, see, I'm wearing them. Yep.
Believe me, if I was wearing this brand right here, if I was wearing these, she would be like, Excuse me. I think that we have a little bit of an issue here. Yeah. So, she's got good fashion sense, so I'm able to do that. I will tell you though, that trading a key piece and still moving on, the Carolina Panthers traded Christian McCaffrey, then went and upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there is some hope for that. I am going to pick the Chicago Bears, not surprisingly, to win this contest. I'm looking at 1-point game, lower scoring. The defense is starting to come around. There are a lot of good things happening with this Bears defense. Bobby Quinn was obviously a much better piece than I hate seeing him get dragged. When people are like, well, he had 1 sack. Why? I'm like, he's getting to the quarterback. He did this 2 years ago. He was getting to the quarterback, wasn't getting the sacks. Last year, he was getting all the sack numbers. And so I think that it was, it's just one of those things. It's unfortunate. You got to let him go. Also, I wouldn't sleep on the Cowboys going out and making some moves. Because, by the way, we talked about the Charles Haley pickup in 92. They also picked up Thomas Everett that season from the Pittsburgh Steelers and went out there and ended up helping to contribute to that team. So we want to thank you for being here. Where can people find you? Where can they find your work?
Find me on Instagram, obviously, at Greg Romero Wilson, at the Greg Wilson on Twitter, and on YouTube are at the Greg Wilson, and then also on TikTok at Greg Romero Wilson. So I should have lined all those up, but it didn't work out that way,
Happened to me too. Yeah, somebody grabbed Adam Rank on Instagram.
I know. You could be Greg Romero Wilson 1. I'm like, who took Greg Romero? Who took this? So I'm like, go back to the Greg Wilson. That's fine. Now, what do you think the score is going to be? If I had to pick the score, I would say 23-17 Dallas.
I'm close to that. I have 17-16.
Woo, that's tight.
Real defensive battle.
And I think that'll play out, but I think a couple big plays will break loose both ways.
Could be.
So Justin Fields, I think, probably gives a good 40-yard scramble for one. So it'll be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be texting you frequently throughout the game.
I'm sure. I'm already anticipating it. But listen, Greg, thank you so much for doing this. We'll have to hit you up again. We'll bring you on to Fantasy Isle so we can chop it up and do some fantasy talk as well. And then, but yeah, don't be a stranger, and I'll talk to you this weekend.
Oh, by the way, wait, because I have one more thing.
Yeah.
I love the way that you've managed to become the wrestling heel of NFL Fantasy Live.
What does that mean?
You become like, you know what I mean? Like everyone, like your energy, you're just like, you change everything when you're on it. You're like the heel on the show. Like everyone knows you're going to be like, oh, really?
Here it comes. Yeah.
It is a totally different energy. And listen, I'm here for it. I love it. I think it's the best part of the show, and I know a lot of America does. So,
well, that's very kind of you, Greg. No, I appreciate you. Love you. Glad you're doing well. Thank you, we'll do this again very soon. I'll talk to you Sunday, and you're rubbing it in. But in any event, thank you so much. Get out of here, the great Greg Wilson, a good friend of mine. I am so happy that we were able to have him on. By the way, I'm glad we were able to clear the air because we needed to clear the air. And speaking of which, we spend 90% of our time indoors, and indoor air can be 5 times dirtier than the air outside. And Pura, air purifier, can remove tobacco smoke, odors, VOCs, mold, wildfire smoke, chemicals, and just clean the air. We got viruses. The kids are back in school. They're bringing home viruses all the time. So it's important to go out there and get yourself an air purifier. And our friends at Air Pura will give you 7% off your purchase if you use the code SICK7. Go to www.airpura.com and get 7% off your Air Pura air purifier. All right. Greg Wilson was absolutely amazing. He is a fun follow. He does a fantasy podcast as well. But as we go to the aisle, you know what, Sammy, let's go to the aisle right now.
Welcome to our Fantasy Island.
And we're going to be bringing back one of our favorites to the show. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody the easiest way to play fantasy football is with Underdog Fantasy. Oh, it's amazing. And it's so easy. To get started, just head to underdogfantasy.com or download the app and sign up with the promo code SICK, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. And I'm telling you right now, the Underdog Fantasy app is invaluable. Anytime you need updates, player updates, you get it right to your phone. It is so convenient, so easy to use. And if sat there and your team is 1-6 or 0-7 or something like that, start over. Go to underdogfantasy.com, download the app. There are tons of games that you can play, not just traditional fantasy football, but tons of fun games. And we implore you, I think I've used that word already once today, but I don't care. Implore you to go and download that. But joining us right now is one of our favorites. He was here a couple of weeks ago. We had to bring him back. Andy McNamara is here. I don't have enough of your platitudes but you're a friend of the show now. That's how you're being introduced. How are you?
Great. I'm good, brother. I'm good. Hey, you know what? I think I need one of those Air Pura things in my house, Adam, because do you smell the desperation? The desperation of week 8 for fantasy football players. It's a stinky cologne. People are panicking. I got messages saying, should I drop Mike Evans? For who? It's crazy. So I'm happy to be back on with you.
Thank you so much. Now, the Mike Evans situation.
Yeah.
Now, he dropped that touchdown, a sure touchdown pass. He still ended up with well over double digits. I mean, do people just forget that as well?
Yes. I love it. And you know what? It's kind of like a sick joy because I enjoy seeing the chaos kind of unfold. And it's just, if you can stay calm, if you can stay relatively calm in fantasy, I think that's a leg up. Because, yeah, you're right. He dropped the touchdown. He's obviously terrible now. Well, not really. Not really at all. He's still pretty good. Future Hall of Famer, you know?
Yeah, he's amazing. And people panic way too much on these players. And I want to talk about people panicking. DJ Moore was one of the most added players on NFL.com fantasy this week, which means a ton of people dropped him a week ago and are now scrambling to pick him up. What do we think of DJ Moore moving forward? I know he's got a great matchup this week against the Atlanta Falcons, but where are we coming down on with the DJ Moore?
Boy, Adam, to me, it all comes down to you have to measure out the quarterback play. Who's the quarterback that's going to be feeding him the football? And that's not a great situation in Carolina. We're on the third string. We're on PJ Walker. If he gets hurt, I think Jacob Eason slides in or something. So I think we have a cap. It is encouraging what we saw last week. So when it's bye weeks, like, look, we got some heavy hitters sitting down this week, right? You're without the Chiefs and the Chargers, so you're probably gonna have to stretch a little bit. So you could do worse than DJ Moore, but personally, I'd rather take like a little flyer on, let's say, a Marquise Goodwin, right? He really popped when DK Metcalf went out last week. Ty Lockett as a hammy. Geno Smith just doesn't care. He just loves life. He's like, sure, bench me. I don't care. I'm just gonna throw it forever. Big deal. So I'd rather go maybe that route, maybe a little more dangerous than Moore. But you know, they have to throw it to somebody.
You're making me think because I was able to pick up DJ Moore in a league and I saw him available on the waiver wire. It's a 10-teamer, but you're like, God, he still seems like a good enough talent. And who else is PJ Walker throwing the football to?
That's it.
What about Wan'Dale Robinson? They got a good matchup this weekend, although Seattle's played better. Wan'Dale Robinson, where do we I think he could be a number. I think he could end up being the most targeted player in that offense. How do we feel about him?
Isn't it a weird year for the Giants? Like that feels like the fakest, yet one of the most enjoyable 6-1s in football. Like they shouldn't be this good. Daniel Jones, is he going to be renewed? There's no wide receivers. It's pretty much Saquon Barkley and Brian Dable just with his magic pixie dust. Just Josh Allen dust. So for one day, like for him on the surface, you think, no, he's like should be a WR 5, 6, 7, not even on your radar. But again, this week coming in a matchup where, and I like to see, okay, what should the game script be? It should at some point. Now you might be able to run because Ken Walker's been dynamite with Barkley. But like I said, Geno Smith isn't afraid to air it out. So Wan'Dale should be getting opportunity. So, hey, you know what? I actually might like him maybe a little bit more than, or at least equal to like a DJ Moore type. So I think it's a good play, a good stream, and probably a cheaper DFS play depending on the format.
Yeah, that's one of you're now speaking my language because these are the problems that I have because I have Wan'Dale Moore and I have DJ Moore or Wan'Dale Robinson and DJ Moore. I lost Marquise Hollywood Brown. I had loaded up on running backs and I'm like, I got CeeDee Lamb, Marquise Hollywood Brown. I'm good. Then I have to scramble and find people like this. Deontay Johnson's seemingly worthless now, but I want to go back to Daniel Jones. This always seems to happen. Now, last week, I had a stroke of genius where I'm like, you know what? We've been talking about all these quarterbacks we want to stream all week. It should be Daniel Jones. Like, what are we doing? Like, let's make it Daniel Jones. Went with Daniel Jones. And now it feels like everybody's coming around. Everybody's talking about Daniel Jones. And I'm like, I know Seattle should be a smash spot, but you went down to Jacksonville, back up to New York. Now you're across the country going to Seattle. Is it weird? I think Daniel Jones ends up like not playing as well this week.
Adam, I love where your head's at. And that thought, it almost seems like, okay, hold on. More people are liking this? Yeah, all right. This is throwing up some red flags. And he always, of course, gives you that little bit of potential fantasy boost with his legs, right? That like a statue like a Matt Stafford doesn't give you. But yeah, I'm with you. And really, if you look at it, his fantasy point production, what's his median at? Like 14 fantasy points?
Yeah.
You like usually? So I'm totally with you there. You know who I'm a little bullish on too? You mentioned the Panthers earlier. I kind of like Marcus Mariota. And I don't like that I like him, but 2 weeks before, he ran 50, a rush for 50 yards, 61, came down a little bit last week, hasn't thrown an interception in 3 weeks. I'm like, Carolina's just trying to pack it in. I'm kind of digging Mariota as a flyer.
I love it. Oh, I love Mariota.
I'm nervous though, but
no, I mean, all these guys should make you nervous. I was thinking about I was looking at Matthew Stafford a lot, and I was like, oh my gosh, like the Rams can't be terrible forever. It would be so on brand for fantasy football to have Matthew Stafford go out and crush it right when everybody has written him off. But at the same time, like you said, he doesn't run enough. Like we don't get that bonus 4 points because he runs the ball that I'm probably going to avoid him. Are there anybody else? Are there any other quarterbacks who are possible this week? Garoppolo has never played well against the Rams. Like a lot of what about what's going on in Tennessee? Could we see Malik Willis this week?
Boy, oh boy. You know what? Malik Willis, I feel like quarterbacks with the athleticism of Malik Willis, who can primarily use their legs, if they get in, typically like the first game that no one's seen him, they like 40 fantasy points and people freak out, and then defensive coordinators kind of figure them out and they come back down to earth. So I definitely have my eye on him. Like if he's going to start, I don't want to gamble and maybe take an in-game change or something, but if he starts, I would play Malik Willis for game one. Absolutely, I think he could. One guy I'm avoiding though, boy, Adam, I don't know if you've been getting the hype quotation around Sam Ellinger. I'm like, the guy ran a bit in college. You're making him sound like Lamar Jackson. Stop it. He's one of the worst offensive lines in football. Matt Ryan banished for the Colts. Like, no. Like, I'm feeling the Sam Ellinger hype. I'm like, no, it's not that bad yet, people. Don't go Ellinger. I don't like it.
I want to though. But for the exact reasons that you said. I mean, when you compare him to Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan, like he looks like Usain Bolt. Like he's out there, and what is he going to do? He's going to run. Like he's just going to run around. That's what this gives the Colts a RPO option that they have not had over the last number of years. And like you said, the defensive coordinators, like, what are they going to do? Like, they don't know what to do with him. Like, how do you stop him? How do you hem him in? I think that there's a possibility that he pops, and then next week's the week that he falls apart.
And then goes down. It could be. And what does that mean for a Jonathan Taylor? Like this new dynamic that we haven't been used to at all in Indy is, even behind that not good offensive line, does that RPO option, does that help Jonathan Taylor, who's been such a disappointment? My gosh, first overall. Yeah. Man, like first overall fantasy picks the last 3-4 years. Yeah, I just don't want to go first anymore. If I have first overall, I'm like, can I get rid of this? I don't like this.
Well, I went 10th and got Aaron Jones, so it hasn't been super good for me as well. Yeah. But you know what? I've been actually advising people to go out and try to get Jonathan Taylor because so many folks, so many fantasy managers are disappointed, and you might be able to just spring a deal for something on the cheap, somebody just willing to give up on him. The problem with people like us, though, is we cannot make trades in our leagues because anytime that you offer anything, like I could sit here and be like, I'll give you Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley for Jonathan Taylor. That deal would be turned down.
Yeah.
Because somebody would be like, what do you know?
You know?
Like, oh, no. I'll never trade with you. So we would never have the opportunity to make that deal. And by the way, that's a terrible deal. But at the same time, I'm trying to just pick at people who have Jonathan Taylor. Like, what do you got to lose? At this point, you're not the one who sunk, first round capital in it. And if you're, if you're somehow packaging Travis Etienne in a receiver for him, I don't know, I might take a chance on that. Speaking of which, what do we make of James Robinson going to the Jets? Who's going to end up being the lead back there?
Boy, just when you think there's a little bit of, okay, well, Michael Carter. Oh, and now there's depth chart clarity in New York. Okay, now I know what to do. No, the Jets say not happening. I think for this week, it's going to be sort of what we saw with CMC a little bit, limited play script. They'll try to work him in a little bit. If we're talking week 8, Michael Carter. After that, I like what James Robinson has been able to do throughout his career. I feel like that explosiveness, and the yards per carry is higher than I thought at 4.2 this year, still low, but didn't really have that explosiveness. Is that Jacksonville? How's that going to be with the Jets? I think he's eventually going to probably take over, but I don't know, Adam. I'm sort of feeling that same target share split or snap split that we saw in Jacksonville, where it's almost even, and then it's like kind of guess it. Do you get quick sign up? I feel that James Robinson is getting Philip Lindsay. Guy does great, undrafted, awesome, and then people just keep wanting to get rid of him. Why?
Yeah, because they didn't. First of all, Trent Baalke did not put any sort of stock into him.
Yeah,
no draft capital in James Robinson. I thought last year when the Rams had an injury? I guess it was Cam Akers when he went down. I had said it had to be last year, where I'm like, the Rams should inquire about James Robinson. And all the Jags fans were in my men, like, there's no way we're ever trading this guy. It would never happen, blah, blah, blah. And this is before ETN went down. And I'm like, okay, like, you guys know more than me, apparently.
Right.
But eventually he does get traded. And it's unfortunate because I think that when you're an undrafted player or a late round pick outside of like Tom Brady or somebody like that, they always default to their pre-draft analysis.
Yeah.
Which is why you see so many first round picks getting traded, because teams will go back and be like, well, what grade did we have for this player coming out of college? I think of N'Keal Harry. I'm sure that Ryan Poles went back to say, what did we see out of him coming out of Arizona State? And they go back and they're like, okay, this guy's worth the risk. We'll ignore what happened in New England. And I think this happens with these running backs, that they're just like, well, he's an undrafted free agent, so let's just take it. The Jags feel, and a 6th round pick is just disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that you couldn't get a little bit more out of that. But, one guy who did get a lot of draft capital traded for him was Christian McCaffrey. Last week, it didn't quite happen as I thought it would. I could have sworn that, like, Juszczyk was going to get a touchdown where they faked it to him. It ended up being Ray McLeod. But now that he's had a week in that facility, what do we see from CMC moving forward?
I think we all have to remember that Kyle Shanahan hates your fantasy football team. He hates us. He just hates it. You're right. Him and Belichick, they'll throw some weird. Who was it? Bo Scarborough, like 3 years ago, the day of Sunday. Makes me furious. But for the 49ers and CMC, look, like you said, follow the draft capital, follow the money. You put a lot into CMC, you're going to want to get him that workload. The guy who falls out is Jeff Wilson. I have Jeff Wilson in 2 leagues. What am I doing with Jeff Wilson? I'm parking him in case there's some sort of injury. But now I want to see, how does this workflow go? How do you work in Debo? How do you work in McCaffrey? Because really, they're both hybrids, but Debo is more of a receiver hybrid and McCaffrey's more running back. But I'm just intrigued how this works out. And then there's George Kittle. Do we write off Brandon Ayuk? There's a lot going on. I'm comfortable playing Christian McCaffrey because he's Christian McCaffrey and you're going to play him. But the rest of that team and offense, very intrigued.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love Debo still, so I'm not going to waver off him.
Me neither.
George Kittle, because there's no other options. You're hoping. I mean, you're going to be in a situation. I don't think it's Kyle Pitts-esque, but it's close. Brandon Ayuk is the one where I'm like, who I love. Again, going back to the ASU guys, it's like, I can't really love it. But by the way, just to pull back the curtain a little bit, this isn't a live show. We record this on Thursday afternoon. We just got news right now. I don't know if you saw this. Kadarius Toney traded to the Chiefs.
Interesting.
I think of this fantasy, since we're on Fantasy Island, I don't think this makes much of an impact. What do you think about this move, though? This is wild. Like, Kadarius Toney is somebody that a lot of fantasy enthusiasts always throw out, like, oh, Kadarius. Also, look at Kadarius Toney. Never panned out. Could the Chiefs be onto something here?
I think it's, when you look at the Chiefs, the wide receiver group, I just pulled up the depth chart here, right? I think it's more of a damnation to how they failed to sort of compensate for Tyreek Hill. Juju's in and out of the lineup. MVS, McCole Hardman, like, he'll get a chance. But again, the guy hasn't been able to be healthy. He's had a lot of red flags off the field as well, whatever the issues were.
Yeah.
So, but now you're in winning territory with the Chiefs. We've seen that can work for people. Fantasy wise, I'm personally going to pass. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. This is Travis Kelce's world coming from Patrick Mahomes, and we'll see how the rest goes. But real life wise, hey, you know what? If it's another wrinkle that keeps defenses thinking, and we know you can pop him in the backfield, slot out, you can just have him run around. Real life wise, I like it, but fantasy wise, I'm not interested.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on here because I've said this, that Patrick Mahomes was not going to suffer fantasy-wise. I thought that Kelce would take a little bit of more of a hit, but that hasn't really panned out, obviously. I just still fear when the Chiefs get into those big games and they get into the big playoff games and things like that. That's when the absence of Tyreek Hill really shows itself. Fantasy-wise, this is great. This is perfect for Kadarius Toney. We love that. And you know what? So that's a great deal for them. A guy with an opportunity to really make something of himself. Now, I know that you're up against it. We got to let you go. But before we do, I wanted to let everybody know that there is going to be a new member of the Sick Podcast family, Sick Podcast Cleveland, with our own Andy McNamara. Tell us a little bit about this.
Let's go. Absolutely. Adam, I love being on with you the first time. I thought, well, I got to get in on the Sick Media Network. It's great. The guys behind the scenes are tremendous. So I thought, well, as you can see behind me, there's a lot of Cleveland Browns gear. And, like Bears fans, we love to hate ourselves and put ourselves through pure hell. And I thought, well, why not do that twice a week right here on Sick Media with the Sick Podcast? So I'm going to mix in Cleveland Browns talk, players, insiders, analysts, give out our dog bones, who's in the doghouse. We'll talk some fantasy football, of course, some betting picks, some best bets as well, and have a lot of fun twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays. So I can't wait to join the family.
No, we really appreciate having you on. And I know that the last time you were on here, we talk after the show and we're like, hey, I'm like, damn, I always liked Andy. I didn't realize how well you did. And especially in the broadcast realm. So
thank you.
You have a great energy and you have a great presence. And I don't really even like the Cleveland Browns, but I'm looking forward to listening to your podcast. I'm going to check in on it because I think you do a great job. And I think you're one of the best in the business, not only in fantasy, but to get an opportunity to talk Cleveland. I know for people like us, we make our hay in fantasy, but like we're fans of one specific team. So to get an opportunity to talk about it, I think is fantastic. When do you guys start? When is the first show?
Well, first, thank you so much. And Adam, I'd love to have you on as a guest as well to talk some fantasy as well. So we're going to start first show new month, November 1st. So Tuesday, coming right off of that Bengals Browns Monday nighter. There might be a bit of a gong, Undertaker gong sound to start the show. I don't know how that goes. So we're starting this Tuesday, then every Tuesday and Friday to keep you up to date on, like I said, fantasy football, best bets going forward, win some cash, and then, of course, Cleveland Browns.
Oh, my gosh. I can't wait for that. I know what an ominous time to start, but you know what? It's okay. Yeah. Give everybody, like the Factory of Sadness will be running full steam. So check out the Sick Podcast Cleveland with our friend Andy McNamara starting November 1st. We can't wait for it, but Andy, thank you so much. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for taking a trip to the aisle, and we'll be tuning in on November 1st to see you.
Adam, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The pleasure is all ours. There he goes, the great Andy McNamara. And with that, we're going to be bidding a fond adieu to our friends at WCKG AM 1530. We're going to let that audience go here in just a matter of seconds. Of course, want to remind everybody that Olin Kreutz, Jason McKee will be up immediately afterwards for the No Name Pod. This is a cover two of Bears coverage like no other. This is the best Bears coverage you are going to find. So we appreciate everybody who's listening in to us on WCKG. By the way, if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook or anything like that, go ahead and just comment sick right now to let us know that you're enjoying the show. And if you're watching us or if you're listening to us as a podcast, rate and review. 5 stars would be agreeable. So for the radio audience, Sammy, why don't you go ahead and play us out? But for the rest of you, stick around.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy and Air Pura.
It's bonus time on the Sick Podcast Chicago with Adam Rank. We are so excited because right now it's one of my favorite parts of the show. We're going to be bringing on our friend Ricky Gold, founder of Juice Reels. And by the way, Juice Reel gives you the best analytics and insights from the community to help you make the best picks possible. Listen, if you watched me on Total Access last week, my picks crushed. I was so good. And I got to give a little nod to our friend Ricky Gold. And by the way, go download the Juice Reel app right now. But let's bring him on. Is he here? Is Ricky here? Is he with us?
Adam,
there he is.
Good to be back.
My God. Oh my God. So great to have you here. Is somebody who loves, every Friday night on Total Access, I'm out there making picks against Thomas Davis. I can't embarrass myself. So you know what? Did I take a peek at the Juice Reel? Listen, I can't give away all my secrets, but tell everybody about it. Give us a little bit more information, what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming on after Bears and Browns fans, what better than us to bring on a New York sports fan?
Oh, boy.
But yeah,
are you Jets or it doesn't matter, but are you Jets or Giants?
I'm Giants, but I'll bet against them if it feels right.
Wow. Okay. Well, you got to be enjoying the 6-1 start. But so tell us though a little bit more about the app.
Yeah, so what we do is wherever you bet, DraftKings, Barstool, FanDuel, BetMGM, your bookie's website, Bovada, anywhere you bet, you connect in your account and all of your bets automatically load into our app. And from there, we give you analytics on yourself, like how you've done on straight bets versus parlays and teasers. And we use all the information everybody connects in to show you what the best people are doing and what the worst people are doing. And we use that information to help you get the best picks possible. It's treated us pretty well. Treated you well, Adam, and hopefully it gives the audience today a bunch of good picks.
I think it treated everybody really well on Monday night too. We talked a little bit about that, and it was if you would have been listening, you probably would have you might have benefited. I already had picked the Bears to win that game, but you know what? I felt better after checking out Juice Reel and everything like that. I know you have something for us today, but let me ask you a little bit. Andy and I were talking about the Giants. I think I'm a little bit more impressed with the Giants than I think Andy was. I think that they're a good team, and I think that they're going to be fine. There's nothing wrong, but I'm just still scared about Daniel Jones this week. Without just Mr. Gold right now, how do you feel about Danny Dimes? And am I gonna be stupid for starting him in fantasy?
I'll be honest. I think I'm shocked at their start right now. I wouldn't have pegged them as hot as they are. I put a little bit more of the success on Saquon than I would to Daniel Jones. But I mean, winning games is winning games. So I mean, I don't like the Giants this week. I don't think they're going to do it. I'd be going against them personally. I haven't looked at the Giant game data yet for betting wise, but my gut's telling me no Giants this week. I think it's got to come to an end sometime.
I made a gut pick on that game because I just think traveling down to Jacksonville and then following it up by traveling out to Seattle, and I know Jacksonville to New York's not that far, but I think back-to-back road games. The Giants are playing well. They're not a bad team. And I know this isn't sour grapes because they defeated the Bears, but I just think that's a tough ask. And once the public starts backing a team, it's like, well, this is when it's going to disappoint you. And so that's, again, no analysis real, but just like, it's a gut pick. But if you don't want to make gut picks, go download the Juice Reel app. What do you got for us today? What's the hot news you got for us?
Yeah, so I had a question for you coming into tonight's game. Haven't had a chance to check. Is Bateman playing for the Ravens?
He's still questionable. I think the most questionable one is Mark Andrews. We're expecting him to play. We're expecting Gus Edwards to play. Bateman, I don't know. We have not heard one way or the other. And of course, if you're listening to us after the Thursday night game, you're like, you idiots. He was out. But listen, I told you before. I just told you a moment ago. We record this Thursday afternoon. We have not seen the inactive report, so it's difficult to really get a good read on that. But yeah, they do have some banged up players there for Baltimore. Even if they do play, they're still coming off injuries.
Our best bettors are not fazed by that. We're seeing something really strong in the data today on the over. I think it's 45. We're seeing 64% of our best bettors taking the over, and 72% of our worst bettors taking the under. So people don't seem to be all that fazed by the injury report. And I'll be taking the over with them.
Yeah, I was looking at that game as well. I think last week we got a little indication where Andy Dalton went out there and decided all on his own he was going to make that a high-scoring game. He's giving away touchdowns. He's scoring touchdowns. He was doing everything perfect. And then on Monday night, the Bears and the Patriots, which you said, people loved the over. And then they had a high-scoring game, 33-14. What is that? 47 points. So not a bad week. What else? Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I got good news for you. The number one Bears or Cowboys bettor in our app is on the Bears with the spread. So we're liking the Bears this week. I think that's good news for you. These top bettors seem to be really doing their thing as now the season's getting into the middle of the stretch.
No, that's huge. I think the Bears have started to come around a little bit, and I think it's because the offensive playbook was opened up. They used a lot of the strengths of Justin Fields. And so even though this is going to be a game where, again, I give credit to the Dallas Cowboys. We had Greg Wilson on earlier, and we're talking, I was effusive with praise. This is a good football team. I still can have confidence in my squad to go out there and get it done. I don't want to give away the farm, but do you have anything else for us? I want to make sure. Can you give us got anything else?
Those are our top two coming in today.
All right.
If I had to go, it's an NFL podcast. We're also liking Washington State tonight with the points, but that will for your fans who are agnostic if it's college or pro, I think they'll be happy with Washington State.
Well, there you go. Listen, and again, I will tell anybody that if you're going out there and you're participating in any sort of activity where you make picks, for me, I do it for free on the NFL Network. I go out there and I just pick games. That's all I do. I just pick games on a television show. I will tell you the Juice Reel app is a good resource. Just like you would go out, just like you would go out and read statistics, next gen stats, Pro Football Focus, any one of these things. Like, take in as much information as possible. I think the Juice Reel app is something very valuable for anybody who loves football, whether you're involved or not. I think it's a good way just to kind of get the pulse of America. See what everybody's thinking.
We do it all at the lovely price of for free.
Oh my gosh, and it's free. How do you find it? Like, you're on your big thing's Instagram. How do we find you on Instagram?
Yeah, it's at juice_real_official, and real is spelled REEL.
That's so easy.
_real_official.
See, that's all you got to do. Go to Instagram, get this information. It'll help you. I know you guys do confidence pools. I know people are involved in other kind of contests. Like, this is free information. You should take advantage of it. Ricky does a great job of providing this service to you. So I want you all to go out there and take advantage. All right, Ricky, thank you so much once again for being here. We appreciate your time and your effort, and good luck to you this weekend.
Thanks a ton for having me, Adam.
All right. Thank you so much. There he goes, the great Ricky Gold. Dude, download this app. It'll help you out. If you got to make picks, if you want to impress your boss, you want to do something like that, go use the Juice Reel app. By the way, I want to thank everybody who was with us here today. The Greg Wilson, he is a fantastic follow. One of the funniest guys that I've ever worked with. You want to check him out. And of course, Andy McNamara with the new Sick Podcast, Cleveland, which will be debuting on November 1st. You're not going to want to miss that. And of course, download the Juice Reel app. And I will tell you this, Monday night, and I didn't get an opportunity to say this much, but Monday night was such a delight. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, you can go follow me at Adam Rank NFL. I have a little video up there right now that you'll be able to find in my grid talking about how great it was that the Bears prevented Bill Belichick from passing Papa Bear Hallis on the all-time list, which it's inevitable. Bill Belichick is going to pass him. But you know what? For the fact that the Bears fans came out, or the Bears team came out for 1 week, and they're like, not this week, Bill. It's not going to happen. I thought it was just the most Chicago thing that we could ask for. I know a lot of you might still be upset that Bobby Quinn. I have a poll up on my Instagram right now, and I can't believe that a lot of people don't like the move. And even Greg was talking about it. How do we make these moves? We can still be a good football team. I think more snaps for guys like Tevis Gibson, for Dom Robinson, for these players. Get them out there, get them the experience. We already saw it with Kyler Gordon. And by the way, Kyler Gordon has been playing fantastic. We talked about this on Tuesday night. The fact that we're not calling his name, we don't even know if he's on the field. That's exactly what you want from your cornerbacks. We don't even want to know if they're there because you only talk about them when they get burned. And these guys have been playing exceptionally well. And it's going to be key this week to stop the Dallas Cowboys running the football. And by the way, Kyler Gordon has been great in run stopping. So hopefully he can make an impact as well. So there's a lot of good things. I know it's disappointing to see some of our favorite players traded away, but this defense, think about this. This defense traded away Khalil Mack. We've now traded away Bobby Quinn. But before we traded Bobby Quinn, we were one of the best defenses in the league. Justin Jones has been playing much better than Larry Ogunjobi. Like, there's a lot of things that are going well for us. I think Eric Kramer did a nice little tweet thread a couple of days ago where you can look back at some of the statistics that are very favorable for the Chicago Bears, especially defensively. Now we're getting our young kids out there, getting them experience. This is going to be a fun part of the season. We're playing some good teams that are performing better than we thought they were going to be. But we always play the Dallas Cowboys well. Then we get the Miami Dolphins, which they're okay. Like, that's not a bad team, but I'm not going to be afraid of them. And then we got the Jets at some point. We got some winnable games. And I think right now we just need to sit back, relax, enjoy it. I still want to win. I know not everybody wants to win. Let's sit back and enjoy it. It's going to be we're on national television once again. Although if you do want to go down, if you're in the Southern California area, we'll probably likely be going down to Rip Beer Company in Huntington Beach, California. The location on PCH, of course, will be the one that we'll be at. I will let you know via Instagram whether we're doing that or not. But in any event, I want to thank everybody for being on. I want to thank Sammy Nanello for putting this all together. I thought this was a great show, probably one of our best in a long. This was a great show. And if you didn't enjoy this, you're probably never going to enjoy it. But in any event, thank you so much for being here. Like, respond, share, do all that stuff. Appreciate you being here. And until next week, bear down.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy and Air Pura.